Less than a year after the release of Nightmare on Elm Street 1, which grossed about 52 times its production budget of $1.1 million, producer Robert Shea decided to go back to the well. So he brought on screenwriter David Chaskin, director Jack Sholder, along with stars Mark Patton, Kim Myers, to come back in, along with Robert Russler, and create a updated, different version of the Nightmare. But a couple of pretty important things were missing initially. I'm CJ, this is Nightmares and Nerdscapes, and today we're talking about 1985's A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the videos so far. If you did, make sure to like, share, subscribe down below, hit that bell, and as always, if you're interested in seeing some of the other stuff that we do, be sure to check out the Dat Feelin' Podcast Network Patreon, which there's also a link in my channel description. As part of the Patreon, starting in January, I'll be doing a new monthly podcast series called From Silent to Streaming, going through the history of genre film from 1900 to 1910 all the way through the 2020s. We'll be starting with horror, so looking forward to that. Now, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge is a weird film. It is extremely gay, and I mean that in the most complimentary of ways. That being said, back in the early 80s, well, mid-80s, 1985 is when this came out, I don't think critics or even the people that were making the movie realized what kind of cult classic they had on their hands when it came to the homoerotic imagery and script writing that was in this thing. I believe David Chaskin may have been the only guy knowing what's going on. There is a documentary out there called Never Sleep Again that I would highly recommend you watch. Covers the entire franchise far deeper than I do. Me, I'm just going to give you the character stuff, tell you whether I liked it or not, and then move on to Dream Warriors, which was my favorite of the franchise. I'm interested to see if it still is. Now, the basic premise of this one is vastly different than the premise of the first, right? For anybody that saw the first movie, Freddy obviously came to people in their dreams, and he would attack them in their dreams and kill them in their sleep. That was his shtick, right? That was the lore. Those were the powers that we were given for Sir Frederick Krueger. In this one, it is more of a possession story. We find out that Jesse and his family, his mom, dad, and his little sister, have moved into Nancy Thompson's old home about 5 years after the conclusion of the first film. And he begins having nightmares about this gentleman Krueger, seeing him throw a glove into a furnace in the basement, the house getting hotter, Freddy telling him to kill for me. Very different tone. It becomes a possession film as opposed to a slasher film. But the slasher elements are still very much there. The kills are still pretty wicked, although I will say there is not as much gore in this film, I didn't think, compared to the first one. But the kills are a bit more creative in a lot of ways, just because they were able to play with the setting and the atmosphere of the kills a little bit differently. Going back to the boiler room is always fun, but when you can twist it a little bit and give us something different, I think that's something commendable. Now, this possession storyline does change the dynamic quite a bit between Fred Krueger and his victim, right? As opposed to the standard toying with his victims until he's able to kill them personality that we've seen in the past. With this one, we have a very dark Freddy Krueger.
Help! Daddy can't help you now.
I would go so far as to say that outside, in the core franchise, right, not counting the couple clips that we get of him in the TV show and then the remake, this is by far the meanest Freddy Krueger that we ever get. He looks menacing. The makeup job here is a very different design and is super dark. Very demonic eye colors, things like that. Of course, the iconic sweater and fedora are still there, along with the glove, the knife glove. But it is a very different character. Thankfully, Robert Englund came back for it. Initially, he did not. They had an extra in a rubber mask attempting to play the character, but due to the differences in movement, they decided to actually meet Robert Englund's financial asks and bring him back on, which I think was the right idea. Early test footage and folks that have seen it say that the extra that they brought on worked very much, or moved very much like Frankenstein, which does not fit the character of Freddy Krueger. So I'm very happy they were able to get Robert Englund back. They were also able to bring Wes Craven on as a consultant, even though he wanted the first film to be very much a standalone story. And in doing so, they were able to keep the stories connected but separate, in that, other than the fact that the parents killed Freddy, which we find out in the first film, the activities of the first film really don't play much into this story. There are some hints going through. A book located in Jesse's new bedroom, for example, helps his love interest, maybe? Lisa, kind of identify what's going on. But overall, this is a very different film than the first one, and it is vastly different than the films that would come after. Visually, it's really cool. There's some cheesy '80s stuff in here. There's a dance scene about halfway through that cracks me up every time. But after watching the documentary and talking to people and seeing what kind of cult classic this is, I'm not the target audience for this film. This film laid the groundwork for a lot of things that would come in the future. Seed of Chucky being one of them. I think this kind of paved the way for that film to be made and to make as much as it did. Now, from a production standpoint, this movie was shot on 3 times the budget of the first film. The first film had a $1.1 million budget. This one had, I want to say, just around $3 million. And where the first film went on to make almost 52 times its budget, this one only made about 10 times that. Critics were mixed on it. Fans at the time were mixed on it. Although I will say that the fans enjoyed it a bit more than the critics did, which I think tends to be the case with films like this, if I know anything about my Roger Eberts growing up. But overall, it's pretty good. It's also fairly straightforward. Basically, Freddy starts terrorizing Jesse in his dreams. Over time, Jesse begins to act peculiar, and then eventually we find out that Freddy has been using him to gain power in the real world. And the last, I'd say, third of this movie, the last act, is batshit crazy. It is the craziest thing that I have ever seen in a Nightmare on Elm Street film. I can't imagine what people thought seeing this for the first time, and I'm talking about the pool scene with the "You're all my children now," which, whatever. Very out of character for Freddy Krueger. But overall, it's not a bad film, and it has grown on me over the years. Do I like it more than the first one? I'm gonna be controversial and piss a lot of people off when I say this, but yes, I do prefer this over the first film. For whatever reason, as important as the first film was for me, in the horror genre, this one is the one that I tend to remember the most. And part of that is because of how different it was, right? They didn't just expand on the lore like they do in some sequels. They changed shit in the lore quite a bit. I mean, Freddy didn't possess anybody in the first damn film. I don't even know he could do that, right? He just used kids' power to manipulate him and try to kill him. And you could grab him and pull him into the real world, which is lore that continues on through the rest of the franchise. But overall, solid film. well acted, well written. It's 80s camp, which should be expected of a slasher film from 1985. But I mean, I enjoyed it. So this one, I mean, if we look at Nightmare on Elm Street as the basis of all other films, right? Putting Nightmare on Elm Street smack dab in the middle at a 3, this would be a 3.5 for me. It is not massively better than the first film. If I go to rewatch A Nightmare on Elm Street, it's kind of a toss-up which one I start with. Sometimes I want to see the farther back, a little bit cleverer Freddy Krueger, and not so much the angry demonic one that we get here. And there's times where I'll skip this movie completely just because it doesn't really feel like a part of the whole. There is a black sheepishness to this film when compared to the rest of them. So, but overall, those are my thoughts. Not a long video, really not a whole lot to talk about here. It's Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, right? If you're over, say, 35, chances are you've seen this. If you're not, go check it out. It's definitely worth a watch. I was able to buy it on Amazon Prime for streaming. I'm sure it's out there somewhere for free to stream. I feel like this franchise bounces between streaming services all the time. But yeah, until next time, when we talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, which prior to this viewing of the franchise was my favorite of the franchise. We'll see if that changes, but I'm not so sure it will. It's hard to change my mind at my old age. But yeah, till next time, go out, enjoy a movie. Cheers.
You are all my children now.